The following day, in front of the Hart estate, 2 guards stood watch at the gate. They noticed someone approaching and halted the man, informing him that this was the Hart estate and the Count was currently away. They firmly stated that outsiders were not permitted to enter. Little did they know that the man they were addressing was none other than Deon Hart himself. Dion, with an air of authority, ordered the guards to open the gates. The guards remained resolute, questioning his attitude. They warned him that if he came any closer, they would attack. Dion, with a hint of annoyance, removed his hood and mask, revealing his identity. He demanded, "I'm trying to enter my own home, and you dare to stop me?" The guards quickly recognized him and respectfully addressed him as "my lord." Inside the Hart estate, the maids hurriedly spread the word that the Count had returned. As Dion entered the house, the maids collectively welcomed him with reverence, causing Dion to think, "I told them they don't need to greet me like this." As he removed his coat, the butler greeted him, acknowledging his return with a warm welcome. Dion reflected on how the butler had been a part of the household since he inherited the estate. Seeing the familiar faces made him truly feel like he had returned home. He greeted the butler, remarking that it had indeed been a long time. The butler concurred, mentioning that it had been around 6 months. He inquired about Dion's successful completion of the monster subjugation mission, to which Dion responded affirmatively. However, the butler couldn't help but notice Dion's injuries and expressed his concern. He humorously touched Dion's face and remarked that he was too old to revenge him from the monsters. Dion reassured the butler that he was no longer a child and that it was fine. The butler acknowledged his status as an honored count and suggested having Dion's room freshened up, considering his weariness from the long journey home. However, Dion declined, explaining that he intended to see the emperor right away, despite his own desire to lie down. Dion cast his gaze upon a large picture on the wall inside his house, a family portrait of the Hart family. The image was partially blocked by curtains, prompting Dion's thoughts to turn to the emperor. He realized that the emperor was likely aware of his return to the empire and that he needed to question him about his brother, Cruel. The butler vowed to fulfill Dion's orders and make the necessary preparations. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Duke Illuster, who mused about Deon Hart's return and referred to him as the emperor's loyal servant. He questioned Cruel, inquiring about his plans now that his younger brother had returned. Cruel remained silent as Duke Illuster discussed their plans. Duke suggested that Cruel's request to the Assassination Guild might risk exposing their intentions. Instead, he hinted at another card they had up their sleeve and turned to Shailin for confirmation. Shailin inquired if Duke was referring to the Revolutionary Army, and Duke affirmed it. He believed that if this group, which sought to overthrow the emperor, became involved, the risk of exposure would matter less. He noted that he hadn't expected Cruel to overlook such an obvious strategy. Cruel apologized for his oversight and agreed to contact the Revolutionary Army. Duke wondered about the skills of the emperor's hero, the honorary Count Deon Hart. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Dion, who was being dressed by maids. They complimented him, saying that the outfit suited him well. Dion found the process chaotic, as everything from bathing to getting dressed had happened in an instant. He was relieved when it was finally over. 2 maids engaged in a discussion about Dion's attire. One thought that a military uniform would make him look more outstanding, but the other argued that the trend was to appear austere, even though all the outfits were white. The butler handed Dion a mask, advising him to wear it due to the strong sunlight. Dion thanked the butler and expressed his gratitude for looking after the estate while he was away. The butler humbly responded, expressing pride in seeing Dion grow into a great count and suggesting retirement once Dion returned. Dion was taken aback by the idea and attempted to dissuade the butler, but the butler quickly revealed he was joking. As Dion realized he had fallen for the butler's jest, he couldn't help feeling irritated. The butler, still smiling, admitted that seeing Dion flustered was his only source of joy. The butler, named Remember, pushed Dion playfully and then mentioned that the carriage was ready. Outside, there was a beautiful garden and a fountain where Dion's carriage awaited. As Dion boarded the carriage, he expressed his preference for fewer guards, as few in the Empire knew of his return, and he expected the journey wouldn't take long. Dion, sitting in the carriage, expressed his preference for only a few guards, as few people in the Empire knew of his return, and he believed the journey wouldn't take long. As the carriage prepared to depart, an officer outside informed him that half of the troops would follow him and asked the guards to stay within their ranks. Dion couldn't help but think about the Emperor of the Empire, Eduardo Desire. He was known for seizing the throne by eliminating all his competitors, including his own siblings, which resulted in a gruesome coronation ceremony where he was crowned while covered in their blood. The emperor even changed the name of the nation from the Old Kingdom to the Empire and declared it under his rule, sparking a war that lasted 8 years. Dion had participated in that war, which had been a nightmarish experience, leading to the loss of half his memories. However, he remembered his life mission from that time. While lost in his thoughts, the carriage suddenly started acting strangely. Dion asked the driver what was happening and then stepped out of the carriage to investigate. He was shocked to see his soldiers engaged in a battle with soldiers wearing blue garments with a single white bird emblem, the Revolutionary Army. Dion realized that they had somehow learned of his return, and he knew the situation was dire. He decided to join the battle to help his soldiers. However, before he could act, a man appeared beside him and grabbed his neck while holding an axe. The man taunted Dion, calling him the dog of the Empire. It seemed that Dion had been caught off guard, and his situation had taken a dangerous turn. In the preceding chapter, Dion found himself ensnared by a member of the Revolutionary Army. As his captor's grip tightened around his neck, Dion's thoughts turned to the despised emperor, whom he blamed for spawning such reckless individuals. Regardless of their beliefs, he cared little for them, all he wanted was to avoid becoming their victim. The man confronting Dion nervously admitted, "I was apprehensive because they hailed you as a hero, but you appear to be nothing more than a scrawny weakling." Dion countered with resolve, asserting, "I'm not a pawn of the Emperor." Suddenly, to Dion's surprise, the man offered an apology and inquired about his name. Dion revealed himself as Deon Hart. However, the man seized him once again, his anger boiling over as he accused Dion of being the Emperor's lackey. Dion vehemently denied this accusation, asserting, "I am Deon Hart." The man remarked, "White hair, red eyes, and bad manners, just as the rumors described." Meanwhile, Dion discreetly searched for his dagger. With a swift movement, he retrieved the weapon and attempted to strike the man, but the attempt was deftly thwarted by the man's axe. The man scolded him, commanding, "Stop fooling around," before forcefully slamming Dion to the ground. As the man readied himself to deliver a fatal blow with his raised axe, a sudden interruption occurred. Another individual, armed with a spear, stepped in and disarmed the man. It was revealed that this newcomer was a member of the murderous Ghost Knights, a group born from the 8-Year War, and led by none other than Deon Hart himself. Panicking, the man exclaimed, "How did they find us?" "Block them." A fellow knight proposed, "I don't think we can simply let them go. Should we create a commotion?" The knight in command ordered the execution of all the men who had attempted to ambush Dion. The murderous Ghost Knights showed no mercy as they dispatched the Revolutionary Army members with ruthless efficiency. The man pondered, what's terrifying about them isn't their skills, but the fact that they have completely abandoned rationality. It's their sheer brutality, reminiscent of their masters. If we engage them head-on, we'll be at a disadvantage, we must eliminate Dion and retreat. Even as the man continued to hold Dion by the neck, Dion attempted to injure him using only his bare hands. In response, the man hurled Dion into a nearby carriage, feeling the pain in his arm. Dion expressed remorse, confessing that he had intended to sever the arm completely but lacked the strength to do so. However, he proceeded to finish off the man by wielding the axe with both hands and delivering a fatal blow. Stepping outside the carriage, a soldier spotted him and addressed him as captain. Dion debated whether to cease his actions, but he ultimately decided against it, thinking, "He's already dead, should I continue? No, I need to set an example so that no one else will dare to attack me again. Just a bit more to ensure that nobody will forget this scene." Dion continued to stab the lifeless body, his actions observed by the murderous Ghost Knights who commented, "That's our captain, he's ruthless." One knight mused, "Doesn't it seem like he didn't need us in the first place?" The response came, "What are you saying? He only brought mediocre men like them." If it weren't for us, things would have been much more complicated. Dion then redirected his attention to the knights and ordered them to eliminate the remaining enemies. The scene transitioned to the Empire's castle, where Dion's carriage had arrived, its exterior marred by splotches that initially puzzled the guards. However, they soon recognized the stains as blood. Stepping out of the carriage, Dion confronted the guards, who informed him that he couldn't enter the royal palace without an invitation. Dion confidently stated, "I am Deon Hart, I've come to see His Majesty." The guards promptly apologized, knowing that Dion had been granted direct permission by the king to visit at his leisure, though they were taken aback by his disheveled appearance. Dion inquired about the king's whereabouts, and the guard informed him that the king was in the banquet hall. Inside the hall, a grand celebration was in progress, celebrating the triumphant debut and success of the new hero. A devilish smile crossed Dion's face as he contemplated the presence of his brother, the newly acclaimed hero, among the celebrants. He suspected that his brother was in attendance at the banquet. Inside the grand halls of the Empire's royal palace, the emperor was engaged in a conversation. "So, you've successfully reclaimed the land taken by the demons? How remarkable," he praised. Kneeling before the emperor was Cruel Heart, the newly acclaimed hero. He humbly responded, "I merely fulfilled my duty." The emperor rose from his seat, holding a glass of wine aloft, and declared, "Today, we celebrate the birth of a new hero named Cruel Heart and congratulate him on his debut. Please enjoy yourselves." However, the emperor's words were abruptly interrupted when Deon Hart entered the hall, his clothing and body stained with blood from the previous battle. As he walked in, a nearby observer remarked, "I don't know who that is, but he's incredibly rude. Wait, although I can't see clearly, doesn't he have red eyes and white hair?" It became apparent that some recognized him as the honorary Count Deon Hart. Ignoring the commotion, Dion continued to make his way through the hall, passing by Cruel Heart. Inwardly, he thought, "It seems my beloved brother has somehow obtained the hero's fragment." Dion then knelt before the emperor, showing his respect, and greeted him with, "Brilliance to the Empire. Your servant, Deon Hart, greets the Empire." The hall buzzed with murmurs as onlookers commented on his blood-stained appearance and peculiar red eyes and white hair, some even speculating about his place within the Hart family. The Duke, observing the situation, reflected, "Deon Hart, you've returned alive. How incredibly tenacious." Addressing Dion, the emperor mentioned, "It's been a long time, honorary Count Deon Hart. I did say you could come see me whenever you like. What kind of disrespect is this?" Dion, apologizing, explained, "There was an ambush on the way here." The emperor, somewhat puzzled, inquired, "An ambush? Who would dare to attack the hero of the Empire?" He silently thanked himself for having sent knights to escort Dion. "It seems you have quite a lot to say to me. Why don't we take this elsewhere, as I have things I want to hear from you as well." The scene shifted to a private room where Dion and the emperor engaged in a more private conversation. The emperor expressed concern, "You said there was an ambush? I can already see it was the Revolutionary Army, no doubt. Sick bastards. So, are you feeling all right? Should I call a doctor?" Internally, the emperor pondered, it is openly known that everyone looks at him negatively. What fools! What other talent has achieved as much as Deon Hart? As the vanguard of the 8-Year War, he accomplished a grander feat than any other. When he left as the hero's comrade, he managed to retrieve the corpse of the hero, which no one had been able to accomplish before. A hero who is defeated by the Demon King is normally tossed to the demons as fodder, so if Deon Hart had not been able to save him, the hero would have met the same fate. It is an incredible achievement to accomplish while facing off against the Demon King. However, there was a price to pay. The emperor finally asked Dion, "Have you figured out a way to undo the curse?" At this moment, Dion recalled the seal of the Demon King but admitted, "I have not." Internally, Dion thought, "This isn't a curse, but a tracking spell." However, the emperor thinks I have become weaker due to the curse of the Demon King. The emperor continued the conversation, revealing, "I sent you to the demon realm since the Demon King is the only one who can undo the curse." Dion pondered, "He's using me as a spy at the Demon King's castle, but what a thing to say." The emperor further mentioned, "I guess you need to go back to the demon realm, then." It gives me great discomfort to send such a rare talent to such a horrendous place. Dion reflected on the situation, thinking, he's sending me back as a spy. Well, I didn't have any ways to reject him. The Emperor shifted the conversation, asking, what's going on at the Demon King's castle these days? Dion responded, there isn't anything new, but I found the assassin you sent to the Demon King's castle. He turned out to be more than just a disposable pawn. He was a hero candidate. Why did you send him to the demon realm? The Emperor explained, he was trash that soiled the name of the hero. I figured he would die before even reaching the demon realm, but I guess he managed to survive because he had a fragment of the hero. But thanks to that trash, I think your status in the demon realm has become much better. Isn't that right, Zero Corps Commander Demon Arut? Dion was surprised by this revelation, thinking, to think he knew so much already. Apologies, I did not have any ways to reject him. The Emperor reassured him, saying, it's fine. I didn't bring it up to blame you. The more you are accepted, the easier it'll be for you to intercept information. To be acknowledged even in the demon realm shows that you really are a true talent. Now, isn't there something you really wanted to ask me? Dion took this opportunity to inquire, why did you place Cruel Heart in the position of the hero? The Emperor understood the underlying motive behind Dion's question, you already know, Your Majesty, that my only regret is that I wasn't able to kill Cruel Heart. He is the only survivor of the Hart family, aside from myself. No, he is the only remaining member of the Hart family who survived me, Deon Hart. The narrative then shifted to a flashback scene where a young Dion was seen gazing at a family portrait on the wall. Cruel called out to him, reminding him that their parents were waiting. Dion followed him, asking if it was already time for lunch. He quickly apologized, to which Cruel reassured him, saying it was all right, and they needed to hurry. However, Dion stopped his brother and expressed concern, what if you get scolded too, brother, because of me? Cruel responded, I'm dirty because I just got back from training. Dion paused for a moment and said, sorry, it's okay with me even if your hands are dirty. Cruel continued walking, and Dion ran to catch up, urging him to wait. Suddenly, Cruel halted, and Dion bumped into him. Cruel remarked, you must really like that family portrait, huh? You've been staring at it for days. Dion admitted, yeah. Whenever I look at it, I feel like it's telling me, we're family. Cruel dismissed his sentiment, stating, it's just a painting. Cruel then scolded Dion, saying, yes, so don't go roaming around too much and stay in your room. As the scene shifted, two maids were gossiping about Dion, with one expressing discomfort about his red eyes and white hair, while the other wondered why he was so different from the rest of the family. Unbeknownst to them, Dion was eavesdropping from behind a wall, contemplating, I've always felt like I was alone. But whenever I look at that family portrait, it feels like I'm a part of this family. The narrative then transitioned to a family dinner where their father inquired about their delay. Dion's mother expressed concern for his well-being, worried that he might have a fever. However, their father insisted that Dion couldn't stay at home forever. Their father mentioned attending a banquet at the royal family's palace that night, and Dion expressed his desire to join them. His father urged him to be cautious and not reveal his peculiarities to the world. Dion bent down, promising to remember his father's words. Reflecting on his appearance and frailty, Dion thought, I'm sure my parents are dissatisfied with me. An appearance that doesn't resemble them, and a weak body. They're just huge flaws in the highly renowned county. Cruel changed the subject, inquiring about a new swordmaster their father had hired. Dion couldn't help but think that Cruel was doing so to divert the conversation away from his own peculiarities. Their father chuckled, saying, since your skills just keep getting better, it's difficult to find a great swordmaster. Dion's mother added, although you say such things, weren't you excited while you were searching around? Internally, Dion observed, the atmosphere in the dining room changed as soon as my brother spoke. Brother really is amazing. Since I'm a lacking child, am I lonely even though we're together? Yes, this loneliness is completely my fault. That's all right. I'm part of the Hart family too. If I try, I'm sure I can do as well as my brother. Then my family will love me more. The narrative then shifted to a banquet scene where Dion, dressed in a robe and princely attire, was approached by another child who addressed him. Dion responded, asking if they were talking to him. Child approached Dion and asked if he was Deon Hart. Dion felt a rush of happiness, thinking, he's speaking to me. This is the first time I am speaking to anyone my age. I'm happy, but what if I make a mistake? Shyly, Dion replied with a simple hi. The child asked why Dion was by himself, and Dion explained that his family had gone to see his brother's swordmaster. The other child, with folded arms and an arrogant attitude, remarked, "Without you? You really have no clue, do you?" Dion's initial happiness faded, and he responded more seriously. The child continued, saying, "There's already a widespread rumor about you being the black sheep of the Hart family. Is it true that your family locked you up?" Dion denied the rumors and said, "No. Of course not. I just get sick a lot." However, the other child got closer and began belittling Dion, calling him a dirty bastard and claiming that white hair and red eyes were ominous. He insisted that even if they were family, they couldn't possibly love someone like Dion, who had been abandoned by the Hart family. Dion was on the verge of tears, but suddenly reacted by punching the other child in the face, shouting, "Stop it! Why are you uttering such nonsense when you know nothing? My family is nice to me." In retaliation, the child punched Dion back, holding him and repeatedly hitting him while insulting him further. Dion, lying on the ground and staring into nothingness, thought to himself, "No, I'm not a monster." Fortunately, another child intervened, stopping the attack on Dion. Dion remained on the ground, lost in thought, until his older brother, Cruel, arrived. The narrative then shifted to a palace hospital where a doctor examined Dion. The doctor commented that Dion had a very weak body and was extremely vulnerable to stress. He also noted that Dion should be careful around sunlight, but mentioned that his liver seemed strong. Dion's mother expressed concern, asking the doctor if it was that bad, while his father appeared disappointed. Their father lamented, "We've never had such a child in the Hart family. How could this happen?" Dion looked at his parents and thought, "Mother, father, I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Please don't hate me." He tried to reach out to them, but Cruel grabbed his hand. Cruel reassured Dion, saying, "It's all right. You don't need to do anything. Nobody has any expectations of you anyway. Monster." Dion was jolted awake from his dream, shouting in surprise. His parents heard his cry. His mother was deeply concerned and asked, "What happened? How could you get into a fight at the palace?" His father scolded him as well, expressing his frustration at Dion's behavior, saying, "I already told you that you need to be extra careful outside. Look at what you've done now." Dion apologized, explaining that the other kids had started the fight. However, the memory of being punched by the other child continued to haunt him. He hesitated to share this detail with his father, fearing that his father might think the same way as those kids did. In response, Dion downplayed the incident, telling them it was nothing. His mother burst into tears, while his father decided on a punishment, saying, "I guess it was too early for you to go outside. You will be prohibited from going outside for a while. Reflect on your actions in your room." Dion felt a deep sense of agony, not wanting to be abandoned or disappoint his parents. He yearned for their love and acceptance and vowed to try harder to overcome his weaknesses, determined to become someone his family would be proud of. He locked himself in his room, where two servants discussed his situation. One servant remarked that Master Dion hadn't come out of his room today either, and the other expressed sympathy, acknowledging the difficulties Dion faced in gaining recognition. From his room, Dion could hear the laughter of his family outside. He approached the window and saw his parents encouraging Cruel, who was receiving their support and attention. In his thoughts, Dion struggled with his desire for recognition, reminding himself not to be greedy. Dion picked up a wooden sword and began his training, realizing that if he wanted his family to acknowledge him, he needed to become stronger. He resolved to train for an additional 30 minutes that day, determined to improve himself. As the sunlight faded and night fell upon the Hart estate, Dion continued his intense training with determination. He felt that he had to keep pushing himself, telling himself that he needed to do more, just a little more. However, Cruel intervened, holding Deon's wooden sword and noticing that Deon's nose was bleeding. Filled with anger, Cruel demanded to know what Deon was doing. Deon stammered, explaining that he only wanted to train to become stronger. Cruel's anger flared, and he sternly reminded Deon that he had explicitly instructed him not to do anything and to remain quietly in his room. Deon nodded obediently, but in his thoughts, he questioned whether he should do nothing at all, feeling like a failure. With a faint, Joker-like smile, Deon asked Cruel to leave his room, saying that he wouldn't do anything, as nobody expected anything from him. Cruel left the room, leaving Deon to contemplate what he needed to do to be loved within the Hart family. A servant knocked on Deon's door, inquiring whether young Master Deon would be dining in his room as usual. Deon asked about the whereabouts of the others, referring to his parents. He was now 14 years old. The servant clarified that Deon's parents were out attending to urgent matters. Cruel then entered the room and informed Deon that he had finished his training in the morning, inviting Deon to play chess with him. Deon thought about how, after he had given up trying, his brother Cruel occasionally came to play chess with him. He realized that he didn't see much of his parents. Deon agreed to play chess and, when Cruel asked if he had interrupted Deon while he was busy, Deon replied that he wasn't busy at all. Cruel mentioned that their parents were busy due to the chaos in the nation. He acknowledged that he was aware it was a lie but found himself clinging to the hope that it might be true. Deon couldn't help but think that the reason for their absence might be because they didn't want to see him. In the midst of his thoughts, Cruel revealed that he wouldn't be able to come and play chess with Deon for a while. Deon apologized, feeling guilty for thinking that Cruel might have found it cumbersome to visit him. Cruel clarified that it wasn't about being cumbersome but rather because of an impending war. He mentioned that at least one member of their family would be conscripted. However, before Cruel could finish his sentence, an unexpected visitor entered Deon's room. Cruel immediately demanded to know who the intruder was and how they dared to enter. The newcomer explained that they had come to deliver a message from the Empire and asked which one of them was Deon Hart. Deon stared at the man, filled with curiosity and a sense of foreboding. The man who had entered Deon's room forcibly grabbed his arm and insisted that they would discuss the details on the way. Outside the room, the soldiers continued to gossip about Deon. They expressed doubts about whether Deon, who looked scrawny, could even wield a sword. One of the soldiers speculated that the Hart family was trying to get rid of him on the battlefield. Cruel intervened, questioning the man who wanted to take Deon away. He asserted that Deon couldn't possibly be the subject of conscription and suggested there might be a mistake. The man responded by explaining that the Hart family had filed an official document with the royal family, and they were merely fulfilling their duties. He advised Cruel to check with Deon's parents to clarify the situation. Despite Cruel's objections, the soldiers forcibly dragged Deon out of his room. Deon couldn't make sense of the situation and was left bewildered and distraught. He wondered if his parents had decided to send him to war, despite his weakness. The idea of participating in the war and facing potential death filled him with dread, and he couldn't comprehend why his family would subject him to this fate. He looked back for his brother but found no one there, which brought tears to his eyes as he felt abandoned and unloved. The scene shifted to a weapon room on the battlefield, where Deon was given a sword. The soldier informed him that he would be sent to the front lines soon and advised him to become stronger if he didn't want to die. As Deon held the heavy sword, the soldiers nearby continued to gossip about him, commenting on his status as a renowned family son and speculating about his ability to handle a sword. They believed he was likely to die soon due to his apparent lack of skill and strength. Deon couldn't bear the thought of dying in such a horrific place, and his fear intensified as he entered the battlefield. The chaos of endless fighting, screams, and the overwhelming stench of blood surrounded him. Tragically, a fellow soldier died, and Deon found himself pinned underneath the fallen comrade, struggling to escape the heavy weight on top of him. In his desperate mind, he kept repeating, "I don't want to die in a place like this." In the midst of the battlefield, an enemy suddenly appeared in front of Deon, and a fellow soldier protected him. The soldier yelled at him, urging him to stop thinking negatively and to fight for his survival. He emphasized that Deon should pick up any weapon available, even if he couldn't handle a sword, and use it to stay alive. The soldier's words ignited a fire within Dion, and he realized that he couldn't die in this place. A dagger dropped in front of Dion, and he grasped it tightly. Determined to survive, he channeled his anger and focused on the single word, kill. With the dagger in hand, he began to eliminate the enemy soldiers, instilling fear in them and paralyzing them with terror. Dion grew up in the battlefield. While fighting, Dion couldn't help but think about going home. He desperately wanted to return, but knew that survival was his immediate priority. An enemy attacked from the side, and Dion swiftly countered the assault, ultimately killing the enemy. As he stood over the fallen foe, he questioned whether home was a happy place. The scene shifted to the Empire's camp, where a soldier excitedly announced the arrival of gifts from loved ones. Dion observed the joy and gratitude of his fellow soldiers as they received letters and tokens from their families. However, there were no gifts under Dion's name, only a letter appointing him as a commander on the front lines. It was at this moment that Dion made up his mind to ensure that the Hart family, which had sent him to this hellish place, would also suffer a similar fate. The scene then shifted to the Hart estate, where the door was open, and a guard had been killed by a man. Shockingly, that man was Deon Hart himself. His parents, terrified, faced him as he pointed a dagger at them. Dion coldly greeted them and proceeded to attack his own father, stabbing him in the chest. His father coughed up blood, and his wife rushed to his side. Standing over them, Dion raised his dagger and killed his own mother. In his mind, he believed that he had finally achieved the dream he had yearned for over the years. Dion found himself in a chaotic and nightmarish scenario, confronting his own parents with a knife in his hand. He lashed out at them, expressing his anger and pain at the way he had been treated and the love he had never received. However, his tirade was interrupted when his brother Cruel arrived on the scene. Dion was in a state of distress, pleading for his brother's help. A sinister voice echoed in Dion's mind, casting doubt on Cruel's intentions. Dion and Cruel engaged in a deadly confrontation, with Dion trying to defend himself with his dagger. Dion accused Cruel of being a bystander who had abandoned him in his time of need, and he was consumed by a desire to end his own suffering. As the dagger tumbled into his grasp, he found himself kneeling and pondered, "Have I pushed my physical capabilities to the extreme? This frail body of mine. I cannot succumb to unconsciousness at this moment. I am determined to defeat Cruel." Just then, Cruel swiftly emerged, wielding a sword and preparing to strike with a powerful overhead slash. As the scene shifted back to reality, Dion found himself in the royal banquet hall, where Lian Rayner, the lofty knight's commander, called out to him. Dion was initially relieved to see someone normal among the people he had encountered, but quickly realized that something was amiss. He had no memory of how he had arrived at the royal palace or changed his attire. His last memory was the carriage was ambushed. Dion tried to piece together the events, but his memory was fragmented and disjointed. He couldn't recall seeing the Emperor or receiving any news. Lian explained that the banquet was being held to celebrate the birth and debut of the new hero, Cruel Hart. Cruel greeted Dion, and Dion couldn't help but feel that his bad dream held some significance in his current situation.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.